Hello, it's the Redeye Stream number 93. There's something very wrong going on in the UK, is there not, voice? What's going on when you can't even enter the country if you have the wrong opinions, or you want to go to Speaker's Corner and give a speech, or if you want to interview, God forbid, Tommy Robinson? What's going on, man? This is your country. We'll dig into the article, but I want to hear your thoughts first. What's going on, man?
Well, apparently our government has decided to follow the Merkel example and become Nazis. Yes, we will happily let in criminals, and I mean convicted criminals from Europe who have committed crimes in other countries and have come here to hide. We will happily let them in. We will happily let in the Islamic terrorists, the quote unquote children who all look like their 30s and 40s. We'll happily allow them in to butcher our people. But a lady who has a differing of opinion, no, that's a step too far. No, this is basically got to the point where it can no longer be, we can no longer stand for it. It has got to the point where sharing your opinion has become literally a arrestable offense. You can literally be jailed for voicing your opinion on Twitter, etc. So yeah, it is extremely bad in this country. I mean, just look at good fella on YouTube. He was arrested for simply a tweet. No, we have ended up somehow having the same mindset, the same mentality, the same laws that Nazi Germany had when it comes to speech. I mean, I honestly wouldn't be a bit surprised if you see people starting to burn books. So yes, we have a massive problem here.
Not to point out what we've pointed out a million times with the Nazi pug, but I mean, he still hasn't even been given his day in court, really. They keep delaying it, or they brought him in to grandstand against him for an hour or two, and then they delayed it again, right? Like, what is going? I don't understand. And Tommy Robinson, has he been arrested? Is he like a criminal? Is there a real reason why an American citizen can't go speak to him?
No, you see, the thing is, Tommy Robinson used to be part of a right-wing group. Now he's out by himself now, and he has done a lot of interviews. He's doing a lot of social journalism, independent journalism, showing the state of the UK. Of course, anytime he says anything, he is brought down to the police station. Basically, if he walks outside his door, they will just take him down to the the police station. They won't arrest him, but they will hold him while they question him and then let him go. I mean, just last week, him and his female camerawoman was attacked by 7 members of Antifa just for standing outside a shop, and they were attacked. The simple fact is...
Wait, though, was he just standing there, or was he Zeke Heiling all over the place?
No, he doesn't do that. He was standing there with his female camerawoman, and they attacked. Antifa is, by the very definition, a terrorist group because they use violence to push their political ideology. That is terrorism.
Yeah, but how dare he look at them the wrong way? He started it, voice. Come on. He is the radical in this scenario, is he not?
No.
I know, I'm being facetious.
The left is trying to... The government's trying to paint him as a bad guy, but he's not. The simple fact is the government has lost. When it came to Brexit, it was demonstrably that the majority of people wanted out of the European Union. They lost that big time. They've lost the mainstream media thanks to the internet. You have more and more local groups appearing every day. They've lost control, and this is their last-ditch attempt at bringing everybody back into a nice, controllable fashion. Unfortunately, it's not going to work.
Well, and it seems insane to me that one of my favorite movies, V for Vendetta, is set in Britain. That's the setting of it, of both the movie and the comic. It's coming to life. It's coming true, voice. Like, this shit is getting insane over there. It's far worse than even the Alienist Edition acts we had during when France was at war with England way back. You know, John Adams signed them into law. But this is getting worse than that. And MC, what the heck? Are they going to start black bagging people here soon? Black bags and zip ties? Voice is just chilling, talking to me. Next thing we know, he's being dragged out of his house.
Oh, you can expect it. That's coming. The problem you have right now, right, is still, even today, with all of the violence that the left has committed and continues to commit. Do you see pushback from the authorities? No. In fact, what you see from the authorities is you see the authorities joining the left to crack down on conservative speech. That's what you're watching. Now, I don't know anything about this guy aside from what I've read in these articles. And to be honest, I don't know all that much about Lauren Southern or her pedagogos or anything else. All right. Aside from just watching several YouTube videos with her and so forth. But it should be quite readily apparent where this tactic is going and where it will lead. I mean, people forget there was somebody that was banned from the United States. Was it 5-6 years ago now? There was a U.S. radio jockey who was a conservative radio jockey who preaches, borders, language, culture. And that's all he preaches, border, language, culture. Nothing about racism, nothing about ethnicities, nothing about religion. Just borders, language, culture. And he was banned from Britain. And it's Michael Savage.
And it seems to be getting worse. I mean, like literally, Lauren Southern did have press credentials. Styx pointed that out in his video. This woman had White House press credentials when she worked for the Rebel Media. She is a journalist, and they won't let her cross the fucking tunnel into the UK. I mean, I thought she got arrested is what I initially had heard. I guess she got turned around at the border. But still, she not allowed to enter the UK. I believe she's an American citizen or Canadian. Either way, or even worse, if she's a Canadian, she's part of the Commonwealth then. How can they ban their own citizens?
Well, you have to remember, the last time she was over here, she was doing a lot of interviews of the far left, of Antifa, scumbag terrorists. She was interviewing them. She got attacked by them, and the police blamed her.
Well, it's also similar to how Berkeley had to offer therapy sessions for Ben Shapiro's arrival. It's always the individual's fault where people couldn't make their own decisions to not be butthurt about something. So there you have it. There are my 2 cents. Also, Britain has to delay its age verification program for porn to the beginning of April 2018. And this program will obviously not be taken advantage of in any way whatsoever.
Well, it's not going to work.
That too.
I mean,
well, yeah, they can get a VPN and just have it register that they're connecting from the United States, and then bam, their little ban doesn't work.
That's true, but the fact that they're trying to attempt it just shows that things are getting worse.
Yes and no. All right. First of all, I'm going to tell everybody this right now, right, who's listening. Look, VPNs do several things. All right. The idea that you're completely anonymous, however, and that you can't be tracked is nonsense. Just understand that. If they really want to track you down, if they really want to track down your activity, right, a VPN is not going to stop them.
Yeah, neither will the Tor network or anything else like that. You're absolutely right. But it is another layer of defense and a way around certain stuff like that. around some censorship.
It is a simple encryption capability, right, for effectively is what it turns into, an encryption device. It makes it a little bit more difficult. All right, but if nothing else, the tools that were released, all right, by was it Anonymous, all right, about what the CIA had, should demonstrate that they could easily, go into a VPN network and analyze it. And anyone who thinks that somehow these things are totally secure, and I say this from any kind of communications. If there's communications that are being broadcast, to think that your communications are totally 100% secure, all right, is a freaking fool's game. I don't care what kind of encryption that you're running. I don't care what you're doing. That's the same attitude that the Nazi Germans had when they talked about the Enigma device. Oh, our communications are 100% secure. You could never break our codes. All right. To think that's true is just nonsense.
Well, yeah. There's been several times the Pentagon has been hacked, and people have been thanked for it because they now figure out how to update it. I mean, if the Pentagon can get hacked, if the Obama's accounts can be hacked, anybody can be hacked.
Well, let's wrap that back around to connect with the current topic. So if you can't even use a VPN or an encryption device to protect your identity, to stay anonymous on the internet, what do people like Black Pigeon Speaks? How can they even go to the UK? Sooner or later, they're going to find everybody's identity. They're going to know who we are behind the avatar, so to say. Our free speech at that point will be infringed, because then my right to movement is infringed. Then I can't go visit Voice, in Ireland. You
have the right to travel to a foreign country. You're a foreigner.
Fair enough, MC.
And your right to free speech is only guaranteed in America.
Okay, so you want them to be able to just stop you? Like, I can't go see Stonehenge because my show is a little edgy on YouTube.
Well, they probably understand that your whole reasoning for going over there is to try and steal a castle back that you claim is yours.
Shut up! Shut up! This is a new channel that's connected to the old channel. Damn it! Damn it! There goes my castle.
Anyway, sorry about that. Didn't mean to bust your bubble. I told you I was going to try and be quiet. You shouldn't have invited my commentary.
Deader, mod, deader.
Yeah, I know. No, I mean, Voice, you live there. Are they going to allow you to leave? If they find out who you are and your opinions, can they not only arrest you within the country, but can they stop you from traveling abroad? And would they start doing that?
Well, I don't think they'd stop me traveling abroad, because it's not up to them where I go. It's up to the country I'm going to. So they can't actually stop me from going to another country, So I'm not worried about that. And secondly, if they want to come, and yes, as many people know, I've never hid my name. I don't hide my face on my channel. If they want to come for me, more fucking power to them. I'll take 3 months in a nice, lavish fucking prison with my own gym, my own TV. Oh, I'll happily take taxpayers' fucking money. Fuck them. If they want to come for me, bring it on.
Yeah, I don't. That's another thing. Once they start arresting all the thought criminals, how much is that going to increase what you guys spend on prisons? And you don't spend that much, right? Compared to the USA, you spend hardly anything.
Well, no, we actually spend quite a lot, Mod. I mean, I worked it out. Oh, fuck. I wish I'd dug out my notes if I knew I was going to talk about this. But basically, it's like, what is it? I can't even remember the figure now, but yes, we do spend a lot on prisons. Even taking in consideration the population size between the two countries, we spend probably as much as you do.
Well, the U.S. has the highest incarceration rate in the world by quite a far margin. But at the same time, spending a lot on prisons for any country is still bad. Also, not to mention that, but what was the movement you were talking about that now has over 2 million followers? I mean,
Britain first.
Britain first, that's right. And if that, assuming all of them are British, all the followers are British, out of 65 million, that's 3%.
Hold on
that's
here.
overestimation.
Hold on here. The idea that spending money or a large amount of money on prison system is a bad idea. Would you prefer the alternative? We catch the criminal, we shoot the criminal. 48 cents later, we just go on to the next one.
Okay.
No.
But
we want to minimize that.
Is Lauren Southern a criminal? Is Tommy Robinson a criminal? Is Voice of One a criminal? Is Cabbage a criminal? My answer would be no.
Maud, I had to break in there. I just want to point out, did anyone else notice this is the multiple time in a stream where our friendly her Oberst has brought up slaughtering everybody? And does anybody notice this trend of MC of wanting to kill everyone? I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'm gonna put together a meme of MC's little symbol on the Georgia Guidestones. Either that or Jason. You can do that for me.
Well, go over your point.
Well, no, my point was, okay, but they're not criminals. These are people with a different opinion than the status quo, or that the government wants the status quo to be. Because, as Zachary was saying, there's quite a bit of people that want to put Britain first, right? And how big was that English Defense League? Do you know, Voice?
Not offhand, lad.
But, and is that attributable to the same thing as the KKK over here? Are they really like skinheads or racists? That's not what it sounds like Robinson is saying. Sounds like he doesn't want violent refugees in with rape gangs and no-go zones. I would tend to agree with him.
Well, the ADL isn't afraid to get stuck in, so yeah. I wouldn't say they're KKK. I would say they're somewhere between the alt-right and the KKK. You know, they're in that grey area, if you know what I mean.
I disagree. I don't think they're on that gray area. They're definitely on the alt-right.
Oh, I
mean,
said
if you look
between
at their
the alt-right
website.
and the KKK, in between them.
Yeah.
So would they actually go and fight people like they actually have done some pretty bad stuff then?
Well, it says here that, let me see.
I mean, they have a mission statement, if we want to go over it.
They have only about 3,000 members at the minute. And that's up from 300 in about, where is it? In about 3 years. So they went from 300 to almost 3,000 in 3 years. So, and that's 2012 numbers. I don't have the numbers now, so they're probably a lot bigger.
Okay, so they are kind of out there. But wasn't he that he created that? So I don't know, was he ever arrested when he was a member? And after he's left.
Yes, Tommy was arrested when he was a member, but he left it because it did get too extreme. That was the reason he left.
And he has since came out again in opposition to them, or has he just been silent on the issue?
No, he's been opposed to their violence. He has been said that publicly.
Okay. But I could see how the UK would have him on a couple lists, though. I mean, I could see that. But somebody coming in to interview him, which is all Brittany Pettibone was trying to do, to actually detain her and not just turn her around, isn't that a little overboard? Especially when it's not a UK citizen. I know they could stop you from coming in, MC. I get that. But can they actually detain you for no reason? And why hasn't the U.S. consulate gotten involved? Or why didn't they get involved? They're released now, and Sent to Austria, of all places.
Well, that's probably the main reason is because being detained for a relatively short period of time. I mean, if she's being detained for days on end, that's something different. But are you really going to? Is the State Department going to get involved in something when somebody says, "Well, I was detained for like 8 hours, 12 hours"? You know, I mean, it's as long as you're not under arrest and as long as your conditions are more or less humane, there's no reason that the State Department would get involved in something like that.
Yeah, and it would actually be a bad precedent to do so, because then when we detain somebody at the airport, we'll have foreign governments all up in our face about it, right?
Well, there's that, but I mean, I don't think we're worried about that so much. It's just that, okay, what you got to remember, the police in many states, depends on the state to an extent, but police in many states can hold you for 48 hours without charging you with the thing. So to say that, you know, your due rights or your rights are being violated when they have the ability to legally hold you for 48 hours without charging you, would be very difficult to actually argue if you tried to go in front of a court system.
Well, I just, sorry to interrupt you there, MC, but the Minister for Immigration is a woman called Catherine Noakes, and guess what she is? A first world feminist and SJW. So I can guarantee you the reason they didn't get in was 100%.
Is this something she puts on her profile publicly?
Yeah, on Twitter.
So that is her actual Twitter description?
It's not in her bio, but from what she's tweeted and retweeted, you can know exactly where her...
That's a straw man. What's her name?
Caroline Noakes.
Is it with a C or a K?
Caroline is with a C.
Oh, Caroline.
Yes.
So now you're gonna correct the Irishman's English. Well done.
Fuck off.
But like the speech in V for Vendetta. But like the speech in V for Vendetta says, when you used to have the right to speak up and say something, when you used to be able to protest, not anymore. And that's what it looks like it's going to in the UK. It looks like that movie was very prophetic, if I could spit that word out. Jeez.
Yeah, but I don't think it'll be as stylized as the movie. I think it'll be more like running street battles of an indeterminate nature.
Well, that's how it's going to. I think you're right there. I think that's what it's going to have. What's going to end up being the result. All right. It's not like we haven't seen precedents in this, right? We haven't. It's not like we haven't watched how these things happen and how they've happened in the past. What you're going to basically end up seeing is you're going to basically start seeing street violence, and you're going to see the police and the state side with one side or the other, and you're seeing it now. All right. The problem that you guys are going to have, all right, and I'm serious about this in England. If you think that things are SJW now, give it 3 years. It's not going to get better. It's going to get far, far worse. Why? Because the bureaucracy that you guys live under, all right, is so left wing you can't recognize it. This is one of the problems. Go ahead.
No, sorry. I'm looking at her Twitter profile. I might be mistaken, but apparently she's conservative. Am I looking at the wrong person?
She's not a feminist. I mean, you have to remember that Theresa May, our conservative prime minister, was also pro-feminism. You know, conservative over here doesn't mean the same thing it means over in America.
No, I'm aware, but also the 76 cents to the dollar was completely disproven when you did a analysis that adjusted for outside factors. So there's different levels of feminism. So saying you're a feminist is almost like a check the box requirement these days. But are they really that edgy when it comes to that? That's what I'm asking. It's a bit of a straw man, that's all.
No, you find all these people in government are if they say they're feminists, they're usually hardcore feminists. You know, no. The simple fact is the mindset here, and MC is correct. Like I said earlier on before we started the stream, that the tipping point when this is going to happen, we haven't got to the lowest ebb yet. It's when we hit that lowest ebb. I don't think it'll be 3 years from now. I'd say somewhere between 1.5 and 2, when Brexit is finalised and gets put into effect. It'll be that time, depending on who's in power and what laws they try to introduce, that will be the tipping point where balance will start to happen. You know, I think it'll be around that time.
I think what people have not seen in the Western world for a long time is they haven't seen war, and they've forgotten what it is. They've forgotten what it's like, and they're going to get a lesson, and it's going to be harsh because both sides are going to gear up. One side to try and defend itself, the other side to sit up there and silence them, and it is that radical. It's bad in the United States. Do not get me wrong. It's bad in the United States. It's getting worse in Britain. And it's getting worse in Europe. Now, the left in Europe, in the European theater, especially in Germany, has a lot more control. They've been able to tamp down a lot more and keep a much tighter control, at least at this point in time, on the quote-unquote right or the conservatives.
Granted, a lot of them fled to Austria, which makes things easier on them, ironically.
Well, yes and no. I mean, because the problem is, of course, is that when they flee to Austria, then they lose workforce. Okay, and Germany has a problem with their workforce. They're not replacing their workforce, right? They're going to have
their educated workforce, but yes.
Well, it's going to get worse if Merkel and the rest of the EU thinks they're going to get into a trade war and win against the United States. Okay. And this is going to feed. This is going to feed into it. Okay. People don't realize how fragile things are in this situation. This is a lot more volatile than people realize. But in Great Britain right now, the problem that you have is you don't have. You can say that you've got a conservative government because that's who the prime minister is. She's from the quote-unquote conservative party. But the reality is that your bureaucracy is so left-wing, it's close to being communist.
Well, look at the BBC. That's exactly what's going on.
I agree. So you're going to have them come out and they're going to try and start stepping on civil liberties all over the place. And the idea that communists, right, are not moralists or won't go after all the precious little moral virtues that people talk about is totally misguided. Okay, it should be obvious to you or people if they really examine communism and what communism does. Okay, that the idea that they won't go from a moralistic standpoint, that they won't try to stamp out porn, that they won't sit up there and try and stamp out anybody who sits up there and has any kind of viewpoint that they disagree with, regardless of what it is, even if it's something as ridiculous as, okay, today we've determined that the color of the sky isn't actually blue, it's a light kind of green, you just can't see it real well, so you got to start calling it green. And if you say the sky is blue, the idea that you won't go to jail, they are that radical. It sounds ridiculous, it sounds hyperbolic, it sounds like I'm taking it to an absurd level. But this is what they're like and what they've always been like.
Well, yes, Corbyn is a communist and he's been gaining points in the polls. And also, not only that, next Tuesday is when Count Dankula makes another appearance in court. I could see another outburst or another level of suppression occurring. It's building up. And also, when goods don't move across the border, that's when soldiers in arms start to do the same.
Yeah, but how exactly can they defend themselves in Britain from this? They don't even have guns, you guys, unless it's like a 30-30 that's going to do absolutely nothing.
Well, the police don't have guns either. Their police are pretty powerless, too.
Yeah.
I mean,
you do understand that we do have a rapid response team. We do have our version of SWAT. They
True.
do have guns, and over here in Northern Ireland, which is slightly different from the rest of the UK, all our police are armed. So,
Oh,
yeah.
true. Well, in England, not all the police are armed.
No, they have special response teams, but
True.
the rest
Well,
of them are
did you
just,
see how ineffective they were against the what was that terror attack with the stabbings in the London Bridge? I mean, that was some pretty slow response time, if you ask me.
Yeah, well, let's put it this way. If it was American police versus British police would get their asses kicked. It's that simple, even without the guns.
Not if they're from Florida.
Oh boy. Or the Columbine cops.
No, but seriously though, the civilian population doesn't have very many firearms, and even to have a few, you have to have a firearms license. Where over here, you just need a firearms license to be a firearms dealer. So, I mean, I don't foresee the citizens actually being able to defend themselves even minutely against an oppressive government.
Well, you
I'm
can either do
sorry,
the Gandhi
let's-
tactic
Let's
or
look at the
the
history here.
Soviet-Russian tactic.
In
Pick up your dead
here
comrades'
in
gun.
Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland, we have toughest gun laws. That didn't stop for 40 years terrorist groups and criminals getting guns into the country. Believe me, if something goes down, I can guarantee you someone will be bringing in illegal weapons. I can guarantee it.
Plus the fact those kind of weapons are not the only kind of weapons that people, if they really are interested in revolting, will utilize or have access to. All right. Additionally, okay, the idea that you can't create a civil war situation where the military is ordered to do something that they say no, like put down a food riot, for example. I'm just using this as an example, and they refuse to do it. Where some of the units refused, and some of the units say, let's agree with the government. I can foresee a civil war. Now, what could prevent all this in Great Britain? I can tell you right now. I hate to say this, but it's true. The one thing that could prevent this all in Great Britain is the Queen. She could right now say, I've had enough of this. This is how things will be. This is how we'll do things. And she would be able to garner, I think, enough freaking popular support to readdress a lot of these issues and force certain things within Parliament. Now, whether or not she has the will to do that is a different story.
I'm sorry, MC, just not to cut you off in midstream or anything, but you do understand that it's Parliament that okays the Queen's funding.
She could dissolve Parliament, though, couldn't she?
No, not
Yes,
nowadays.
thank you. That's what I've been arguing. The Queen needs to take her damn power back. Either that or die so the Prince can take power. And
That's
actually
even
take
worse.
some power.
Isn't the Prince more of an SJW?
Yeah, both of them are. Especially the younger one. He's very fucking SJW. Of course, like, you see, I'm against the royal family. I think it's a fucking waste of time. You know, they're so out of touch that, quite frankly, I'm surprised they're able to wipe their own fucking asses. You know, so yeah, I wouldn't put much fucking faith in,
Well, it's the required military service that keeps them down to earth, and even then.
Yeah, the required military service. Yeah, you don't. Now, you see, here's my problem, right? You have required military service for the royal family. The unfortunate thing here is, like, unlike the other marine grunts who grew up in a housing estate, they don't have several, let's just say, highly trained operatives making sure that no harm comes to them while they're during their service. You know, I'm sorry, you can't treat them like other soldiers. You can bet they're protected as much as possible from everything.
Well, that kind of defeats the purpose of having a bloodline and having a second, third, fourth, fifth, whatever option. But that's just me.
This isn't like 200, 300 years ago, as MC said, there hasn't exactly been a war. There's been a few conflicts, but, you know, there's no threat of them ever dying. So,
Well, is there at least one member of the royal family to where if the citizens, you know, pulled a French Revolution, you could prop up?
Prince Philip, the old the Queen's husband, he'd fucking be a rocking king, because this is a guy who turned around to a guy with a beard and dark skin and said, "Are you a terrorist?" You know, he doesn't give a fuck.
That's awesome. How have I not heard that story? That's fucking great.
Just type in Prince Philip's Goffs, Gaffs, and there's a whole list of him just opening his mouth when he shouldn't have, you know.
I don't know, man. The royal family used to have some guts, you know? Like, what happened?
They got soft.
But no, I'm not a monarchist. I mean, you know that. But I mean, I think the Queen should, she could come out and say, hey, we need to stop all the refugee thing for a while and figure out, you know, Brexit. We need to separate from the EU and we need to make it happen. And just her word, she doesn't even need to make it law. She doesn't need to take power, but her word would rise the populace to make Parliament act, would it not?
You'd only see. I don't think there's as much. Maybe in the heartland of England and those places, and some of the major cities, you're going to have, you know, real monarchists. But out in the sticks, for myself, I don't see it. I mean, I think honestly it'd come down to a 50-50 split. And again, as I said to MC earlier on, remember it's Parliament that okays her finances, so she's not going to risk that.
Yeah. Well, let's look at the article a little bit. So the article I got was from thevoiceofeurope.com. I've never heard of them before, but they seem to be right-leaning. We looked into them a little bit before the show. And you could tell by the language here that they lean right.
And and just want to point out, it's not my cousin who lives in Europe.
Identitarian leader Martin Schellner and Brittany Pettibone arrested in police state Britain. You know, I almost said police station Britain. I'm like, what the fuck? All right. The UK has detained identitarian leader Martin Schellner and his girlfriend Brittany Pettibone for having the audacity of wanting to hold a speech at the Speaker's Corner in London. The audacity of those people. How dare they? The place is known for being an open space for all to come and make their voices heard. But apparently that is no longer the case today. I would say that's no longer been the case for a while. What do you think, Voice?
Well, now, the most ironic part of this is the fact that Speaker's Corner is about free speech. So the fact that they're trying to quell free speech at Speaker's Corner just shows how fucking in the wrong they are, you know.
Wait, so is that like a actual free speech space zone or whatever, like they have on lefty college campuses here in the U.S.?
No, that's been a free speech place for I don't know how long. You know, that's always been about allowing people to say whatever they want. You know.
So if Dankula would have took the Nazi pug there, could he have gotten away with it completely?
No, because the way they're clamping down and shit, probably not. I mean, the thing that just fucking wraps my head, that whole situation with Dankula is so fucked up. That's probably why they don't want to rule on it and keep just dragging it fucking out. Because if they rule that that's hate speech, that could actually start something that they don't want. It would be having the Streisand effect, you know. And if they rule that it was or that it wasn't, then it doesn't. They're going to lose power in their position, so they're fucked either way. So I'd say this next thing they'll probably just string him along again and put it off sentencing to deliberation to another date. You know, they're sort of fucked themselves here.
Isn't there a cap? Don't they have like a time limit, like a year and a half or something, as soon as they bring him to his first court date or something?
I'm not 100% sure, lad.
No, I've heard something about that from the Britisher. Like, as soon as you're brought to court, you can only make so many appearances before they have to let you go.
Well, I'll take your word for it because I honestly don't know.
I forgot what the time frame is, but I know they have one. So, and I've heard that they're getting close to it. But that's all.
But yeah, we'll continue a little bit more on the article. Lauren Southern has revealed that after speaking with Brittany Pettibone on the phone, the police have detained the couple separately and for the crime of having right-wing opinions, as well as wanting to interview Tommy Robinson and holding their speech. Southern went further by asking, is it now safe for people with openly held right-wing opinions like her, blah, to travel to England if they risk detention like her friends? Okay, now, Laura Southern, how can you come out and say that in public and then turn around and try and enter the UK? Are you just asking to be detained for publicity? Or am I being unfair here, panel? One of you, somebody. Don't you think that
you have to remember that not to disparage Lauren in any way, but remember she was on that boat in Europe that was trying to stop the boat of immigrants coming in. Don't get me wrong, I agree fully with her actions, but that's not the way it's going to be portrayed over here in the media. They're going to see that not as a protest, but as an active violence against the left wing. So this is 100% political. In fact, I would make the claim right now that none of the people involved in that decision could quote you anything Lauren has ever said. They have been told this person is bad because they think this way. Don't let them in. You know, so.
Well, we do have a second article from Fox News, and they have a direct quote from her, word for word, that the Voices of Europe paraphrased, and they said that they were denied entry due to distribution of racist material that represents a threat to the fundamental interests of society and to the public policy of the United Kingdom. I think that was their direct quote on why they turned away Lauren Southern. But just to make sure we don't have something paraphrased, that is the language that they used.
Yeah, that's what they claim. I mean, like, I'd love to know what this racist thing she was that she supposedly spread.
So,
obviously, it's a pamphlet of some sort. So, obviously, they said there's literature. Okay,
it was probably for that French nationalist group she was with.
It's a poster. At least this is what I heard. It's a poster with Muhammad in front of him is like some rainbow colors or something. It might be a gay Muhammad or some shit. I don't know.
Well, that's not hate speech. That's humor.
Well, also, you can't draw Muhammad. I mean, remember when South Park got shit for drawing Muhammad in a bear suit in a tank? So you couldn't see Muhammad, but you knew he was drawn inside of something else.
Well, first off, no images are allowed of Muhammad. So how do we know what Muhammad looks like? So if you draw a dude with a beard that's a stick figure and you write Muhammad, that's now Muhammad?
Yes. Well, no. Technically, no, but because you attempted to do that, you're guilty.
And you're guilty of what exactly? Drawing a cartoon?
Insulting a religion that says you're not supposed to draw that figure because he's holy.
Okay, what about all these figures of Jesus being all messed up and like anti-Christian propaganda or anti-Jewish propaganda? That's all okay still?
No.
They do it anyway, and they're not getting arrested or turned around at the border, are they?
Well, one's in trial because of what he did with his pug, technically. But for anti-Christian stuff, I don't know.
Christians are the oppressor. Don't you understand that?
Obviously. They can never be oppressed.
How can the oppressor be oppressed?
Well, I'm just confused because last I checked, the cartoon is a stupid cartoon, and a stupid poster is a stupid poster. How is that something to ban you from an entire country? It sounds ridiculous to me.
Well,
but maybe that's
I guarantee you that you would get banned from Saudi Arabia for doing that.
I could see that, or Qatar, or Iraq, Iran, yeah. But the UK, England, like seriously, fucking England.
They're going through their communist revolution. It's a soft revolution at the moment, and it's going to get worse. Expect it. You can expect it.
It's crazy.
Speaking of the communist revolution, do we want to move on to the China or not yet?
We can, yeah. Go ahead and lay the groundwork. You have some questions for MC on this one, so go ahead, buddy.
All right. So China has made an agreement with Pakistan to build a brand new port in Gwadar, Pakistan, which is on the southeast coast of that country. This will help them with their trade in the area by the Persian Gulf. And it's basically expanding their influence. And their navy is trying to build influence around the Indian Ocean, and representatives from India are threatened by their presence. It is part of their big One Belt initiative to create the new Silk Road. But a lot of U.S. officials are worried about how they're trying to outflank the U.S. Navy as far as bases go and strategic planning. And there is an article from, I believe, the Daily Caller that I've put in the Discord server that talks about this.
Okay. So what's your question to me?
Do you think China's navy is going to be a threat to U.S. interests after building these ports?
Certainly. They're attempting to expand their naval capabilities, and they're trying to create areas where they can expand their influence. Now, China has had a long relationship with Pakistan. Pakistan's nukes, for all intents and purposes, are Chinese-made. They use China's technology to create their nuclear weapons program. They are also trying to counterbalance not so much the United States in this regard, but actually India, which is also growing in power and naval power as well. All right, so from a regional perspective, they need to gain allies, and they need to prop up certain allies in the region. Now, does this threaten the United States in and of itself? Not really. A single port like that won't do that, but they are trying to gain military strength. Their recent vote to allow Xi Jinping to go
Not
up
have term limits. Yep.
To avoid term limits is also an indication of the civilian leadership and the military leadership basically merging into one.
Also, they approved a new military budget that expands it by another $160 billion.
Right.
And
this doesn't bode well for the populace.
And also, this port is complementing other ports that are stationed in Djibouti in Africa, which is just on the other side of, I guess you'd call that, I think, the Indian Ocean, sort of. And also a port in Sri Lanka, which is in which is just south of India on the eastern side.
Right. But the reality is it'll be decades before China has any kind of real naval capability. All right. It's not that they aren't trying. They are. They did introduce one of their aircraft carriers. Of course, it's an old style carrier that basically doesn't function very well. Is it something to watch and observe? Yes. They continue to try to advance? Yes, they will. They are trying to become the dominant leader in the region. They have two competitors, direct competitors in the region from the Asian sphere and one from the Western sphere. They have the Russians to compete with, which I think is what their main goal is right now, is to try and get on par with the Russians. The Russian Navy has some decent forces, but at the same time, they're quite limited. Their Navy is nowhere near as powerful as their Army and their Air Corps is. So their ability to project power for power projection purposes is not very great. China, on the other hand, with its coastlines and with its attempt to influence, their big coup, they thought, was the Philippines. They thought that they could get a major deal with the Philippines done where they could get a base in there and supplant the United States. And then at that point, they would have a major military base right across the lines between the United States harbor at Pearl Harbor and our new base in Singapore. All right. That didn't work out the way they expected. Okay. Because Duarte is kind of a duplicitous kind of a cunt, and he's trying to do what's right for his own country. I mean, he doesn't mind pissing off certain people around the world, but he's really more concerned with internal affairs than he is with foreign relations when it comes to that, when push comes to shove. So is it something to be concerned with? Does it show growing power with China? Yes, it does. Are there other aspects of this that could come into play soon? Not in the near future, but somewhere in the far future. Now, what does this mean? Well, right now, our big bugaboo in the region, of course, is North Korea. We're now in the position at the point where the North Koreans say they want to talk, and we're in a basically wait and see. Let's see what they actually come back with, and see what China's getting ready to do. At the same time, once again, what did Trump recently do? Is he hit China with major trade sanctions. Everyone talks about the steel and aluminum from Canada, but they forget the fact that steel dumping has been taken place into the United States from China for a long time. So China is the one that's majorly affected by this currently. Right?
Definitely. So we can see this in Seattle with those 3 very large construction cranes. There's going to be a big, I guess, steel bubble coming up, or building bubble.
There's going to be, I mean, there's a number of things that are going to be happening in the near future. We'll see how it all plays out and so forth. Now, where does it go from there? From the United States perspective, the world has been bitching about the United States hegemony for a long period of time. All right, world, you're about to see the United States slowly withdraw, all right, back into its own little sphere of influence, which makes basically North America. The world is getting better be prepared, because the United States is withdrawing foreign policy wise slowly from these regions.
Right? That they are. We are.
And we'll see how all this plays out.
I was just going to say, I'd argue that's a good thing. We should come back to just our sphere of influence.
Back to the James Monroe era.
Yeah.
Our hemisphere.
Yes, no more Hershey bars and stockings for those poor girls in other countries.
Oh, no, you guys could still buy stuff. Yeah, you guys could buy stuff from us. We just don't want to spend money and blood and treasure over there in your guys' conflicts.
And subsidize your military. That's all.
Besides, if what we were talking about with the UK happens, you guys have a lot to worry about you don't need us meddling about, right, boys? You guys need to handle some business.
It's all right. Things get bad enough, and we could be asking our closest ally for a bit of help.
We could accept English refugees. You want to come move to Oregon, buddy?
Oh no, it's too close to California. I'll go further, you know, to the heartland.
I'm on the East Coast. I'm far, far away from that mess.
No, I'd rather be in
blue as Oregon. Don't even try that freaking Jersey.
Dirty Jersey. It doesn't get any better.
You're gonna go somewhere. Go in the Midwest, deep in the Midwest, like
Yeah,
Iowa or
Go to Ohio.
Kansas.
Well, I'm sure you've got a shed MC you could put me up in for a while.
Yeah, I could probably help you out, but I live in Arizona. My parents have a better place.
Whatever you do, boys.
Irish adopted son.
Whatever you do, though, don't go live in Redbeard's basement. I don't know. It sounds like a bad idea.
How do we always end up talking about sheds when we're on your channel?
I don't know.
Every man should have a shed.
Well, once again, though, when you bring up North Korea like you did, MC, could we actually just let China build those fake islands if they take care of North Korea and end that war finally for us, to where we could just have a treaty and be done with it? Maybe we should withdraw some of our influence. Well, but Obama made a big deal about shifting to an Asian sphere of influence. He made a big pivot in our policy away from Europe towards the Asian area. And now we're going to pull back again. I mean,
is the United States is Obama the president of the United States?
Fair enough.
Right.
But I don't
Sticks
remember Trump reversing that policy.
And Sticks did make a good point, right, when he talked about how Obama was not greeted his last trip to China, where they snubbed him. Okay, that shit should never have washed. Okay, and I'm dead serious about that. Now, when it comes to these building these islands, to be honest, what dog do we have in that fight? All right, we don't necessarily have a dog in that fight.
I mean, American Samoa, but not really.
Well, if they get close enough, yeah, but I mean, not really. They're not nowhere near close, really. All right, and is it an issue? Of course, it's an issue. All right, but then again, could we build a freaking island? Well, yeah, there's nothing stopping us from building an island right next to theirs. All right,
also,
really
they're in a
wanted
giant construction bubble. That is their entire industry. Their big one belt, one road project where they're just constructing rail and shipping, trading all over the world. They're just building up and building up. They're just burning their own industry, basically.
Well, they're building infrastructure, kind of like another country did prior to World War II.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is it seems to me these ghost towns they're building, like everybody's like, oh, it's their false fake economy. No, they're preparing for something, guys. Like, I mean, you don't just build that shit and spend all that money on nothing, on ghost towns and just infrastructure you're never going to use.
Also, an economically inefficient railway that goes all the way to Madrid and sends tons and tons of trains there and empty ones back. I mean, but that's another issue. They're one railway.
Well, I mean, it's infrastructure in how they can move stuff around. All right, I mean that's what you're talking about, logistics. Now, logistically, are they handicapped? The answer is yes. Currently, they're very handicapped. This will alleviate that to a point, okay? But at the same time, there are other issues with logistics that they can't overcome, and you're never going to overcome them, frankly, in a communist dictatorship. Now, they don't have a pure communist society the way it used to be, right? But it's still in a lot of ways top-down driven and controlled. And they're going to end up at some point in time in the near future having another Tiananmen Square. It's already building.
It is.
Right.
I mean, the problem is if your own people don't have spending power, you can never develop your internal economy and never develop a legitimate infrastructure or a legitimate economy.
It's worse than that, because if they do end up in a trade war in the United States, their population will begin to starve.
That is very true. But or they have to convince people to eat potatoes, which they recognize as foreign alien food.
It won't make any difference if you're starving. I guarantee you people will try to eat potatoes.
They are very indoctrinated about their anti-potato-ness, let me tell you. But that is another thing. But also, it's actually worse, because a lot of their few rich people that have made it outside of that trap, they're investing a lot of things in American real estate. They're trying to get their money out of China and say, look, you can't touch my money now. You can't influence it because now it's in American stuff. So it's almost as if the few people that actually have spending power, they're taking it away from their economy. So it's almost worse than that kind of a sense.
Well, what'll happen is the government will just basically seize these people and then try to claim it as themselves, claim it for themselves.
That's what they're doing with the luxury hotels.
That's their general tactic. Will it work?
No, because it's private mansions. How much value can you get out of a random mansion that nobody's sitting in?
Oh, right. I mean, so it's not really going to be all that effective as time goes by.
I mean, it works with luxury hotels when you have these big conglomerates buying something that people use. But when it's just random land and private property that's just sitting there, then no, it's not going to work.
So their effectiveness is, but the thing is, they're going to try and seize this stuff at some point, because the government's going to be forced to. The idea that China is stable, all right, China is only stable because the United States has been allowing a lot of things to take place. If the United States becomes more insular, it's obvious the United States is trending in that direction. Okay, as we become more insular, what's going to have what China's problem is going to be is the same problem with Europe that Europe's going to have, which is, okay, you guys wanted the United States to stop being the big Billy badass around the world. Fine. You wanted the United States to start acting just like every other nation in the world. Fine. You're about to see that. You're about to see the United States hammer the holy hell out of Europe. And people, this is, I mean, Trump has made several warning shots to Europe about this. Right now, Europe needs the United States economy far more than the United States needs its economy. The United States, for one thing that people forget about, is the United States is one of the few modern industrial states that can feed itself without any problem whatsoever. Not even Germany can do that. So if you want a trade war with the United States, you're about to see one in a manner that you can't afford. The United States has allowed tariff after tariff on its products for a long time. They have kept United States car manufacturers and other types of manufacturers out of Europe, and they've been very successful at it. When the United States begins to retaliate in the same manner, what are they going to do? Oh, we're going to put a tariff on you? You already got a tariff on our stuff. What's the difference? You're not going to harm us with tariffs, but we can sure as hell harm Germany. We could put Germany under just by crippling their car companies by saying you will not sell any frickin' foreign German-made car in the United States for a period of 2 years, even if we did it just for a 2-year ban.
Well, aren't they already making a lot of their stuff in like Kentucky? So I don't think that would be as effective.
Well, it would be if the United States, if you misunderstand. Just because you build something in like Kentucky, there's no way Kentucky has enough car capacity to sit up there and give up the needs. The second thing is the United States can and has in the past told companies of foreign companies, you're no longer to sell in the United States, and they've banned their products. And that's all they would have to do. Okay, Mercedes, you're no longer allowed to sell in the United States. No Mercedes products in the United States can be sold. End of story.
Well, you're talking about you're talking about a lot of protectionist tariffs here, right? Or straight embargoes. I don't know if the American people really want that.
Well,
They
the American
don't.
people may not want that, but to be honest, if they're selective and they're targeted against certain car companies, they can break those car companies and hammer the holy heck out of the country selling it. And the
All you
United
would have to
States,
do is
believe it
hammer
or not, would be a
BMW.
lot. People in the United States would be a lot more willing to deal with, because how many people have Mercedes? Do you think it bothers them that they don't have Mercedes?
No, they're all driving Toyotas, Hondas, or Ford GM.
Okay. So would it really affect the United States? It'll affect the rich, but in a protectionist kind of a mode, do you think people will really care a whole heck of a lot? Hell no.
The only thing that'll be affected are people who drive Volkswagens or BMW. That's where it'll hurt the most.
Okay, how many people buy BMW? Volkswagen's got a little bit more, but even Volkswagens are not all that common on the market.
Because those are like not luxury cars. And
Well,
Fiat.
Well,
Fiat's with Dodge Chrysler. My bad.
well, like the Jetta sells really well.
Yeah, the Jetta.
There's a lot of them on the road. Yeah. And but the old bugs everybody likes, the old ones, those are all just resales anyway, so they wouldn't be involved in any type of embargo. So that wouldn't really matter.
But the Golf sells a lot. The Golf sells a lot, so that would be where it hurts. The Jetta, the Passat, and the Golf. And
We
then
see this is what you get, you traitors Yankees for not buying American.
That's weird.
I have a Chevy. We have a Chevy. We're a Chevy family. So
I have Japanese cars.
Oh, you have those gay ass spoilers on it too, don't you?
Hey.
I knew it. I fucking knew it.
No, I don't.
No, but the United States, there's a difference between the trade practices of the United States and what it's done in the past and what Trump is promising. The idea, the situation is not the way it was back in the 1940s. It's not the way it was in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, or even the 1980s, right? The situation has changed dramatically around the world. We aren't a manufacturing base. What Trump is basically doing is he wants to ramp up manufacturing in the United States. He's done two great things to do that. One is he cut the corporate taxes to move those industry headquarters back to the United States. And the idea that now I'm going to hit a protectionist tax to help those companies compete, all right, during startup costs, because really that's the only thing they have to worry about, all right, is a great way to once again infuse these manufacturing back into the United States. And if United States begins its manufacturing role and gets even halfway to the levels that we had back in the 1960s, the rest of the world will not be able to compete with us. That's reality.
I'm not sure if that's going to be just as simple, because I feel like with the tax cuts, a lot of it is just going to be given to shareholders. I think it's just going to be put out to dividend bonuses, basically. And 30% of the stock market is foreign owned anyway.
Well, but the tax cuts for corporations means you have to relocate back in the United States.
I don't think that's going to just be that simple, but it's technically how it's going to start.
It's not 100%. You're right, but it does encourage that. It's pushing that trend.
Well, and I enjoy speculation, so let me speculate a little bit. You have China ramping up its infrastructure projects, and all that, and you have Trump, on the other hand, trying to bring manufacturing back. What do you need exactly for a war? You need manufacturing and you need infrastructure. And it looks like
oil.
Two major
so
and oil,
to that,
which now we're oil independent. Which now we are oil independent. So we are completely getting there.
Well, we have if we had to, we can rely on the oil from the shale rock in Canada, because that would be profitable to make once the price of oil goes up, or profitable to get. And there's tons of that.
The United States is on target to become the world's number one producer of oil in 4 years.
with all that offshore?
Anwar. We opened up the Anwar area.
With the what area? Remember, you might be the biggest supplier of oil in the future, but with your love of automatic gearboxes, you'll also be using half that oil yourselves.
There's a lot of truth to that, but the one thing that China doesn't have is China doesn't have oil. This is another reason why they're trying to become more of a player in that region, simply because they're trying to shore up their reserves. China isn't stupid. A lot of people talk about, oh, China's going for the green revolution. They're going to be green in 20 years, 30 years. They're outpacing everybody in this. No, they're not. All right. China understands. This is why they're building coal plants left and right. China understands the idea of the world that's going to run on green energy, that as we currently have it, is a pipe dream. Okay. There's not enough. All right. And unless you go nuclear, all right, unless you start building nuclear power plants, something China is technologically not capable of doing right now in large scales. Yes, they can build. I'm not saying they can't build nukes. All right, I'm saying that in order for them to build the high quality power plants, it's going to be for power generation. They're not situated in a very good position to do that. All right. It's not as easy as people think it is. It's a lot easier to build bombs than it is mass numbers of nuclear power plants to run your grid, right?
Well,
at the same time, you're trying to create the grid. At the same time, you're trying to create the electrical infrastructure that the United States basically runs on. I mean, people take this for granted in the United States. We have massive amounts of power crisscrossing the United States. All right, which is in large areas. Every household in the United States has electrical power, has water, has plumbing, indoor plumbing.
Heating, AC, a lot of stuff. That's, yes, very taken for granted. Gas lines, you name it.
All right, China doesn't.
Yeah, but like I said, I like speculation. I'm speculating that the two major world powers are gearing up for a future war, which they have both sides have said the next war would probably be with China, between China and the United States. So as the United States gets oil independent, and only thing we're really lacking is our infrastructure is getting old. It's collapsing. We need to work on that. I haven't seen Trump trying to push a massive infrastructure plan, which as a libertarian, I'd probably be opposed to anyway. I would like that to be done more locally, but if you're gearing up for a war, you would want to do that on a massive federal scale once again, like when they laid the interstate line. How long does it
actually take to put down a rail line and build a road?
Fair enough. It takes a little bit longer to retrofit the bridges and stuff like that. But I was also wondering, though, in a war, doesn't the nuclear power plant become a prime target? Wouldn't you try and bomb those?
Why would you?
Make it melt down if you could, and then cause a massive...
Okay. Cause massive what?
Damage in the surrounding area, like the meltdown in Japan after the tsunami hit. I mean, we're still getting radiation off the Oregon coast from that.
Yeah, okay. And how bad is the radiation from the coast?
Oh, it's not that bad. But what about Chernobyl? That was a massive meltdown that happened. Or is that just outdated technology?
Well,
we have safeguards now. And,
well, I mean, safeguards are one thing, but if you bomb it, it's a lot of the safeguards go out the window. I mean, if you hit it with a bomb, all sorts of things can happen. All right.
Well, that's my point. Yeah. So you would be spewing radioactivity all for however far. That would be a prime target for a military raid against, wouldn't it?
Not really.
Even if it was us in China, or
well, it doesn't serve it for what purpose? Once again, are you trying to do a denial of an area? So what? I mean, is that area going to be critical? Is there a heavy population center you're trying to depopulate, move out? For what purpose? Can it cause can it cause irritation or something like that? Yeah, but from a military standpoint, what do you really gain?
You would have the population in fear. You would knock out a portion of the grid, and also you would prove that you could bomb wherever you wanted within the United States.
China, once again, China is not as dependent on a grid. Okay. So what
I'm talking if they did it to us. Also, I mean,
well, I mean,
that would hurt us quite a bit.
Them attacking the United States, I mean, it's attacking the United States across the board. Now, the United States cares more about, obviously, the environment than other people do. I think that the ideas that people talk about when they talk about Chernobyl and the radiation and everything else, a lot of that is fear-mongering more than reality. I'm not saying that a nuclear meltdown isn't dangerous. All right, I'm saying that the scale that they talk about, the devastation is not nearly as widespread, number one. And number two is in a war situation, you have people that would be committed to cleaning it up, and the cleanup would take a shorter period of time. Would it be perfect? No. Would it be effective? Yes. All right. People have a lot of fears when you've been in peace way too long. For example, and I'm just putting this out there. This is not the same thing as radiation. Do not misunderstand me. I'm not trying to compare it in as a direct comparison. I'm just trying to show you an example of the difference of how you act during a war situation versus in peace. We in the United States have been and constantly talk about PCBs and how dangerous it is as a carcinogen, right? And yet they have playgrounds in Europe where all they did was bury the PCBs underground, and they've never had a problem. All right, the kind of cleanups and stuff that we go through that we worry about, all right, would go to the wayside when you're in a war situation. All right, if you're going to look at it from that standpoint. Plus the fact, whether people understand this or not, the United States has the ability of shoring up its grid if it so chose to do so. Would it take time? Yes. All right. Would it take an extraordinary amount of time? Would there be chaos for 6 months or so? Yeah, for about 6 months. But after 6 months, we could fix all the grid problems. We could fix all the logistical problems pretty much that quickly. Now, with nuclear weapons, 6 months is an eternity. Do you have time to respond to that? That's the biggest difference in modern warfare today.
How ready would the opponents be if there was another, let's say, World War III? Are they going to immediately nuke each other like during the Cold War? Like that was on the table, imminent destruction or whatever, however they fucking put it. Or are they going to be restrained and try just conventional warfare before they turn to the nukes in one last grand stand?
Who knows?
If you were to speculate, what would your bets be?
You don't speculate on what your opponents will do. You speculate on what their capabilities currently are, and you meet that capability.
Okay. Could our missile defense system actually stop China at this point? If we're just talking about China, not Russia.
We could survive an exchange. Would it be perfect? No. All right, but would it be devastating like what the Soviets could do to us or the Russians could do to us? No.
I think if we're talking about speculation here, I think you're more likely going to see a Cold War rather than a physical war more than anything else.
So they enter into this trade war type scenario and it just escalates into Cold War type paranoia voice?
I wouldn't say paranoia. I'd say more using a Cold War mentality to push political and trade deals. I think that would be more likely than an all-out war. I just don't see it.
Well, I think it'll be different in the regards to how much of the United States withdraws from the world, though. Everyone talks about how we're going to have a war with China, but as we withdraw from the Pacific, as we withdraw from the rest of the world as an influence, and we allow other, that vacuum to get filled by other players, okay, it's not going to be the focus on the United States nearly as much as people think it is from the grand scheme of things. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's an interesting thought, though. If we do withdraw all the way back to our end of the world, I don't think China would initiate anything. We have too much trade right now. And if they actually help with this North Korea situation, we might give them some concessions. We might lighten up on the tariff, and we might, work with them more closely.
Well, the big thing is trying to the big concern that everybody has or seems to have really is not trade from that aspect, but to try and protect intellectual property, because China's been stealing intellectual property from the United States and Europe wholesale. Okay, that's going to end, and that will cause other repercussions. You will start seeing a reduction of Chinese nationals being allowed into our universities, et cetera, et cetera. So from that standpoint, I think Voice is right. It's kind of a Cold War type of mentality in that regard. I think I would agree with him.
Sorry, MC, could you say that again? I almost fell off my chair.
I said in that regard, I think Voice is right. It will become like a Cold War type of mentality in that you're going to see the United States do things to protect its intellectual property, and Europe as a whole.
Yeah, well, Zach brought up this topic, and then he bounced. Anything else going on in the world you boys want to talk about, or should we wrap it up here? We've gone over an hour. It could be a short one today if need be.
What has happened today?
I don't know.
Well, MC said I was right, so that's something.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. How often does MC say someone's right?
Yeah, good point. I guess we should end it there. That way you can just have that victory. This has been the Redeye number 93. Voice was right for once. We're out of here, guys. Have a good night.